of Dr. Viktor Fursov, entomologist, beekeeper teacher, devoted to insects and science of entomology. Today we have stream about insects and about entomologists, and about famous French entomologist, which name is Jean-Henri Fabre. And we will be talking about influence of the entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre on entomology and entomologists in Japan. But first of all, I would like to tell you about influence of entomology in your country. What do you think about entomology in your country? Maybe you don't know anything about it. You are very surprised about word of entomology. Entomology, this is a science about insects. And scientists were called entomologists. And just the father of entomologists is considered, according to the first publications, famous publications. Many entomologists and scientists, biologists are considered as the father of entomology, French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre. And it's difficult to say what's about Jean-Henri Fabre influence for you in your country had. But in our country, in Ukraine, neighboring countries, a great influence had his translations of his publications, because he first published 10 volumes of books about natural world of insects, about interactions between humans and insects in the natural world. So you can write in comments, what do you think about insects? What do you think about science of entomology in your country? Write in comments, write in chat. Because today we will be talking about insects and about entomology and about French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre in Japan. Because Japanese entomologists, Japanese lovers of insects, we have a huge entomological society, entomological associations. We have several entomological journals devoted to insects, devoted to science of entomology, and devoted to arthropods. Large groups of, including just isopods, others, spiders and others, arthropods. But what about insects? Actually, many books are published in Japan every year devoted to entomology and devoted to insects. And all of them were just absolutely high quality. We have great published photographs, great pictures, and interesting texts. Today we will be talking about entomology and not about living insects, not about live insects. Today I will tell you about Japanese entomologists and Japanese entomology and about French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre. I'll show you just a publication of one of photographers in Japan. His name, Mitsushika Imamori. Mitsushika Imamori, you see, what nice cover. So wonderful cover. And publication has a high quality. Every bookstore in Japan has a lot of books devoted to insects. And this book is full of wonderful photographs. Wonderful photographs, because this book is devoted to 4 seasons in the life of Japanese nature, in the life of Japanese insects. Because Japanese people, they do like to connect their life between humans and between nature in 4 different seasons. That's why all this book devoted to insects with wonderful, with high quality, with super quality photographs, which were taken in different seasons. Some spiders, how spider is making the nest, how fireflies are flying in Japan, very famous fireflies, about dragonflies, about caterpillars, about beetles, wasps, butterflies, moths, and all others which are living just near Japanese house, near buildings, in parks, and in nature. And Japanese biologists, Japanese entomologists were great in their taking wonderful high-quality photographs. Sorry about it, but I do not read Japanese kanji, katakana, hiragana. I use photographs and some Latin names which I taken here. Some wasps. And you see here the season of autumn. So here just abstracts. But I will tell you about and also about aquatic insects, aquatic beetles. So wonderful photographs of this author, Matsushiko Imamori. But today I will be talking about another book, another Japanese book which is devoted to French entomologists, not to the book of two Japanese authors, and book is devoted to French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre. This is just a short introduction to invite you to my channel. Thank you for coming. Mike, thank you for coming. My subscriber or viewer, Japan. If you didn't subscribe yet, write to subscribe under this video. And you can use some links for sponsorship as well. Thank you. Actually, today we will be talking about a new book which uses French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre, whose work on insects won a great acclaim, great influence on Japanese biologists and entomologists as a starting point to explore issues facing Japanese society, ranging from the environment to education up to artificial intelligence. Who is Jean-Henri Fabre? You know, probably, if you are coming here and looking for some video about insects. French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre was a teacher. He's a legend of entomology. The renowned French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre lived in 1823-1915 in France. He holds a special place in the hearts of generations of insect-loving people all around the world, including Japanese people. Actually, the translation of his 10-volume Souvenirs entomologiques, 10 volumes book about natural world of insects, published in English as Fabre's Book on Insects, remains a favorite book among all bug slaughters of all stripes in Japan and other countries for its engaging description of anatomy, behavior, biology of host of insects gleaned from Fabre's pioneering research. Actually, in Japan, the long list of Fabre fans includes different biologists and entomologists. Society of Japanese Entomological Society is a huge, but today we'll be talking about two authors of interesting book, which is named Jean-Henri Fabre and Japanese people. This Japanese fans of Fabre includes Mr. Yoro Takeshi, well-known philosopher and professor emeritus at the University of Tokyo, and Okamoto Daisaburo, specialist in French literature and professor emeritus at Saitama University. Today I will be talking about interesting article which was published by Izumi Nobumishi, author of different articles published in Japan and international articles, and I will be pleased to read his article about this book of Fabre and his influence on Japanese society. Yoro Takeshi and Okamoto Daisaburo, these both men were drawn to French entomologist Fabre by a lifelong interest in insects, and today these authors, they serve on the board of Japanese Henry Fabre Society, with Okamoto Daisaburo as the president of this society. Society devoted to the memory of Jean-Henri Fabre. Quite interesting. In your country, do you have a society devoted to Jean-Henri Fabre? Maybe not, but in Japan there is a society devoted to memory of Jean-Henri Fabre. Japanese Jean-Henri Fabre Society. These two authors, Yoro Takeshi and Okamoto Daisaburo, they recently published in last year, 2024, the book Faburo to Nihonjin, which is in English, Fabre and the Japanese People. This is a collection of their wide-ranging discussions about the famed French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre and his influence on Japanese society. In this book, Yoro Takeshi attributes Fabre's enduring popularity in Japan to the intimate approach he took to his subjects, noting that Japanese and Europeans actually saw insects in fundamentally different ways. Is it really so? Do you agree or not? Or you disagree? Maybe the approach of Japanese, Europeans and Americans, which can study, which can observe insects quite close or different? Probably yes, different. This is explanation of approach of Japanese biologists, Japanese researchers. Yoro Takeshi says that in France, Jean-Henri Fabre was considered a bit of oddball for having such a deep interest in bugs, but it was about more than 100 years ago. But his research resonated with young Japanese people, with young Japanese boys and girls who grew up with cultural affinity, very close approach for insects. There was a familiarity that people could relate to. Okamoto Daisaburo, who spent 3 decades translating Fabre's books of insects into Japanese in its entirety, laments that little has changed in France in terms of people reconsidering the importance of Fabre's most important works. He says the fact that few peoples in his homeland take the time to read it, he states, has kept Fabre's achievements from receiving the recognition they deserve. But actually, it's quite interesting. Can you say that in your country, in your language, was the book Natural World of Insects written by Jean-Henri Fabre was translated in language in your country? Actually, I'm from Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. The book of Jean-Henri Fabre has not been yet translated in Ukrainian language. Maybe in future, who knows? We need biological books, we need cultural books, we need translations. And translations of interesting books, even old books, such as Jean-Henri Fabre book, World of Insects. But this book was translated in Japanese, and this book content resonated with hearts of many Japanese young boys and girls, Japanese people, and serious old man who is making a huge interesting collections of different insects, including moths, butterflies, beetles, different insects. The author of the article interviewed Mr. Okamoto in 1995 while he was president of Japanese Insect Association, during which he started with his view the Japanese cultural tradition of living close to nature fosters a deep connections and appreciation of one's surrounding. He says, there is a tendency in Japan to be detail-oriented, as if observing nature through a telescopic lens, he opinioned. from his opinion. He attributed that cultural trait to Japanese hordes of amateur entomologists, but also went as far as tie his fixation with details to Japan's reputation for technical innovations in industries like semiconductors. Hello, people who is joining us. Today we are talking about Japanese people, Japanese entomologists, and talking about French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre. Mr. Okamoto Daisaburo pointed to the works of 18th century artist Ito Yakushi as a glowing example of his cultural proclivity for minute insects, for tiny insects. Discussing Ito's depiction of a cricket dangling from the vine, Okamoto noted that it is the underside of insect that was shown, not the top side of insect, as would be more typical, something he argued that it is a clear illustration of a painter close attachment to the natural world. What can you say about connections and reconnections with nature? I'm talking now about Japanese entomologists because I found interesting article about Japanese entomology, Japanese entomologists, and about French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre and his interconnections with Japanese culture. In 1960s, there was a golden age of amateur entomology in Japan. Children headed in droves to parks, woodlands, and fields to collect insects for their own enjoyment, logging their findings in specimens cases as part of their summer holidays homework assignments. Actually, in this time in 60s, economic growth in Japan has brought prosperity at the expense of environmental degradation. Sorry about it. But the full brunt of the rampant air pollution in the era had yet to be felt. There remained a vast variety of insects to be eagerly snatched up in nets. At the present time, children today in Japan, are left to communicate with environment scattered by widespread use of agricultural chemicals and rapid urbanization and other issues. The reduction in vegetation and insects actually is obvious, as states Mr. Yoru Takeshi in this book. Mr. Okamoto Daisaburo describes the situation as a material richness amid a deprivation of insects. In late July 2024, the author of article traveled to Fabre Insect Museum to meet with Mr. Okamoto for the first time in nearly 30 years. During conversation, lively octogenarian spoke time and again of the changes of the wild of Japan, saying that society now suffers from what he calls a privation and degradation of nature. Reflecting on Fabre's approach to his life and his work, Mr. Yoru Takeshi, in his book, describes how he becomes beholden to devices like smartphones for information. He loves that Fabre's independent thinking, describing how he studied the standard approaches of his field and set out the observation of his subject directly, conducting experiments on his own design in order to unravel the mysteries of insect behavior. Mr. Yoru Takeshi suggests that finding ways to get children to put down their devices and reconnect with nature, even if just once a week or once a month, not always watching for smartphones. Actually, Japanese authors advocate a dedication of smartphone-free national holiday. Are you agree? It will be very nice for any society, for Japanese society, for European nations, and for Japanese nations as well. Practically cite a forced decoupling from our devices. To go out to collect insects makes a compelling argument. What can you say about importance of you in nature? The authors of book about Jean-Henri Fabre, Yoro Takeshi, and Okamoto Daisaburo obviously share with Fabre's affinity for nature, humanity, and insects. They have a companion in other Japanese entomological luminary, Shigeru Usuke, author lived 1903-2007, whose 1996 book reflected that Japanese people bond with insects revolves entirely around their relationship with insects. In their book, Mr. Yoro and Mr. Okamoto share their own wit and extensive knowledge, touching in their dialogue on topics ranging from native views of nature to Western values to the unquestioning trust in science and technology. Yoro Takeshi also raises an alarm about Japan's propensity for natural disaster, stating that the eruption of Mount Fuji could occur in conjunction with major earthquakes on Tonkai and Nankai Fort in the Pacific. And actually, an unsettling coincidence, a month after the book was published in 2004, the Japanese government warned of activity of Nankai throat after large earthquakes struck off the coast of Miyazaki Prefecture in August of 2004. Reading the text of the book, Faboru to Nihonjin, or Fabre and the Japanese people, it's quite hard not to come away with the feeling that Japanese people today, their unquestioning adherence to rules and constant concern over how their own perceive them, they're grown distant from Fabre's view of nature. Yoro Takeshi seems to be saying that such a loss of independence bodes poorly on potential strike by a massive earthquake on the capital, Tokyo. Modern life in Japan is largely remoted from the natural environment, in big cities, by the way, mostly. And few people have the once prevalent understanding that nature doesn't conform with all our expectations, which begs the question. And the question is, how will such people cope with disaster that strike? This is a short story about new book which is named Faboru to Nihonjin, or in English, Jean-Henri Fabre and Japanese People, written by Mr. Yoro Takeshi and Okamoto Daisaburo, and it was published by publisher Kaya Shobo in 2024. And actually you can read full article on the website nippon.com. I will give the link down there. But again, I am very pleased to show you again, for people who came here for the first time, the wonderful book of Masahiro Imamori, book about 4 seasons in the life of Japanese people. So today we have been talking about French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre. What do you think about Jean-Henri Fabre? Did you read any books of him? Did you read any articles about him, about French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre? Did you read it when you was a young boy or young girl, or just later already in college, in university, in your own language or in translation, write in comments. It will be interesting to know. And again, I'm pleased to show you this book of Imamori, Mr. Imamori, and several pictures, some photographs, wonderful photographs of nature in Japan. Because some people asked me to show some live insects today, but today I'm showing you just book from Japan, like this. Morphological metamorphosis, changes of caterpillar into pupa, and later to adult. And this book devoted to 4 seasons in life of Japanese people and Japanese insects. So here again some chrysalis, which you can find easily on some oranges just outside your apartment in Japan. There are some beetles sitting on flowers. I cannot show too much, but just a little bit for introduction. So maybe you can, if you are interested in this author, you can search for his books online. Fire beetle, fireflies beetle, which are flying everywhere around in some very, very rare places in Japan, and they're under protection. But I have seen their flight in Japan when I was lucky, visiting Nagoya. And my friend showed me a village with fireflies sitting on the ground, flying around, crowding on banks of small stream in small village. Fireflies are famous not only anime, but also in some places in Japan for special fireflies celebrations and holidays. Some beetles, some cicadas. I cannot show you now. Aburazemi, big Japanese cicada, but I can show you it later. Here some other insects. Mantis, I guess mantis. Praying mantis, also very famous in Japan. Oh, tombo. Tombo extremely common and extremely famous in Japan because a lot of lakes, a lot of rice fields, a lot of ponds, streams, rivers in Japan. So there is a huge biodiversity of tombo or dragonflies has been described in Japan. And biology is still under description. If you come to Japan in spring and autumn, in summertime, you obviously will find, you can see dragonflies. Some spiders, I guess so. Some butterflies and beetles. Kabutomushi is very famous. Beetles, stag beetles, very famous in Japan. Many people are collecting stag beetles. Lucanidae and Scarabiidae as well. Japanese people do like to collect beetles and butterflies and moths and dragonflies. Big insects and very attractive insects. In collection, if you collect some insects, write in comments which insects are you collecting here. Also about metamorphosis, aquatic insect, Neuroptera, Cialidae family. So you can collect insects using light traps, especially night moths. Very productive methods. And of course you can take a photograph using wonderful Japanese equipment. Japanese Panasonic, Sony, and other cameras. And you see Japanese cricket, which is seen in captivity and in nature. And some people were keeping them in some cages for singing as a natural beauty sounds, to listen natural beauty sounds. Thank you for coming to our stream. Thank you for joining our stream. Write your comments, ask questions. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to press like. Thank you for pressing hearts, smiles. And here, spider sitting underneath of leaf. Using Japanese microphotography, people taking wonderful photographs. And Japanese photographers and biologists and entomologists are very profound in taking nice photographs of insects and different arthropods as well. Here, praying mantis as well. Thank you for being with us. Write in comments which insects do you like. What do you think about Japanese entomology? What do you think about Japanese interest in entomology and insects? And what do you think about insects in your country? Thank you for being with us. Press like, write comments, ask questions, and don't forget to subscribe. And you can visit my Patreon page and Monobanka for sponsorship. And looking forward to see you soon on my channel. Again, as a subscriber, as a viewer, and looking forward for new discussions. The sooner the better in new stream. Good luck, see you soon, and don't forget, stand with Ukraine, support Ukraine, help Ukraine, and Ukraine forever. And thank you to Japan for supporting Ukraine. Good luck, see you soon on my channel. Bye bye.